And the doctor actually turned around and said to my mum and dad, he can't stop drinking. I hate thinking about this, but my poor mum had to basically feed me vodka. My name's Toby Winson. I'm a journalist for ITV News. I'm also a recovering alcoholic and a recovery blogger. I'll be answering questions today on alcoholism and addiction. When was the moment you realised your relationship with alcohol had become an addiction? I think it actually took me probably 4 or 5 years of abusing alcohol to actually accept that I was an addict. There are 3 main things that you need to get your head around when you are addicted to something. The first one is you need to accept that you have a problem. The second one is you need to ask for help. And the third one is you need to accept that you can never drink again or abuse again, whatever that addiction may be. It took me a very long time to accept that I had an addiction because I didn't want to accept it because alcohol was such a big part of my life. I always say you have the addicted part of your head, and then I have Toby. And the addicted part of your head is so conniving, it lies to you, it's deceiving, and it will trick you. What tactics have you developed for preventing relapse? Okay, so I have like an entire armory of tactics that I use to stop me from relapsing. The biggest one, in my opinion, is talking openly and honestly about your addiction and about your recovery. If I was ever to get a craving again, I haven't had one for a long time. I know I need to tell someone straight away that I'm having that craving and talk to them about it and talk through it and get help. My family are very, very important to me. They're big parts of my recovery network, and having them is amazing. I know not everyone's got a family to help them, which is why it's so important that they reach out to the alcohol services that are out there. The second one is I have a healthy routine that I stick to, a routine that is flexible, but I find that having that structure in my life really does help my recovery. I also write a blog that really supports my recovery. It has helped me a lot for the last 3 years. It helps me not forget what I've been through and keeps my past fresh in my mind, which is really important. How do I know if I'm drinking too much? If you're drinking in secret, if you're lying to people about how much you're drinking, or you're drinking on your own and if people ask you if you've been drinking and you say, no, I haven't been drinking, that's a pretty big flashing warning light that you are drinking too much because you're subconsciously trying to hide it. Also, if you're drinking every night, that's how it started with me. I started drinking a bottle of vodka every night, and that soon turned to 2. And before I knew it, I was in full-blown dependence. So if you're drinking every night, that's too much. Basically, alcohol is poison at the end of the day. In my opinion, if it was invented today, it would probably be illegal. Anything more than once or twice a week, I think you need to ask yourself the question: Am I drinking too much? And speak to someone about it. And I think you'll find an open and honest conversation will sometimes make you realise that maybe you are drinking too much. Have you faced any judgment or toxicity from people once they found out you were a recovering alcoholic? I don't think I have faced much of this. Everyone that's in my life knows my past because I'm so open about it. And anyone who came into my life and did judge me, I think I'd have a conversation with, and if they still judge me, I would take them out of my life. I know that this does happen. Those people are probably some of the few that have not been touched by addiction, whether it's themselves or someone that they love and care about. I think if they had been touched by it in that way, then they wouldn't judge. How do you think the pandemic has changed people's relationship to alcohol? Well, there are plenty of studies out there that show that more people are drinking at harmful levels. I think there was a study that revealed it was around 4.5 million people were drinking at high risk level before the pandemic began. And 6 months later, that was about 8.5 million people. So people have turned to drink, which is what a lot of people do when they're under extra stress or they've been furloughed or they've got family members with COVID. As a society, it's acceptable to get drunk. So I think people have turned to it. It's just important that the support's there for anyone who has turned to it, who develops a problem. What support did you have with dealing with your addiction, and what can family and friends do to help? I'm I'm very, very lucky. My family never gave up on me. They supported me the whole way through, even though I put them through hell. I often say that I think the effect on the family and the loved ones of someone with an addiction is actually worse than the effect on the addict themselves, because they feel all of the pain that that addict is feeling. But on top of that, they feel completely, utterly, and totally helpless, because it's up to the addict to reach out for help and to stop abusing. But I was lucky that I had my family there who never gave up on me, and a lot of people don't have that. So that's why it's so important that those people reach out to the services that are out there, the support services, or speak to their friends, or just get help from anyone really, if they are struggling. If you have got a loved one who's clearly going through addiction or struggling with some form of addiction, it's really important that you speak to them about it and try and get them to talk about it, and try and get them to seek help, and to reach out to, if it is alcohol and drugs, the alcohol and drug services, or to go to AA, or to go to smart groups. For family and friends themselves, because like I said, it can be very, very, very difficult for them as well, watching someone you love go through addiction. There are charities out there that can help you too. For instance, NACOA are a fantastic charity that offers support to family and loved ones of people with addictions. I was lucky as well, because I didn't get aggressive or violent when I drank, and unfortunately a lot of people do, and that, I suppose, that just comes down to pot luck in how you react to the intake of alcohol. So it can be even harder for families and loved ones to continue to support someone who does get aggressive when they drink. But just try and encourage them to reach out for help, because talking to a professional and talking to your family can sometimes make you realize that you do have a problem, and you do need to get help, and you do need to accept that you need to stop abusing whatever that substance is. Oh God. This is going to be a long answer. Okay. Did you suffer from withdrawals? And if so, how bad were they? Alcohol withdrawals are not just what most people think they are. I think most people know about the shakes that someone who has a drink problem or drinks too much get. That's just the tip of the iceberg, really. I've had seizures from withdrawing from alcohol. I've also had severe hallucinations where I genuinely thought I'd lost my mind, because I didn't know that you could get severe hallucinations from alcohol withdrawal. There are two types of dependence. There's mental dependence to alcohol, and there's physical dependence to alcohol. Obviously, mental dependence is when you are an alcoholic and you're addicted to drinking. But when you've been drinking for a long period of time, a high quantity of alcohol, you become physically dependent as well. That's when your body will react when it stops getting alcohol put into it. And it can be fatal. Alcohol is the most dangerous drug to go cold turkey on. Like I said, I've had seizures, so I've gone cold turkey before. About a day and a half later, I've dropped down and had a seizure. The severe hallucinations was something I knew absolutely nothing about until it happened to me. And it was the first time I had severe withdrawals. They're actually called delirium tremens. I ended up running towards traffic on a dual carriageway in just my trousers, because I thought someone was trying to kill me. It wasn't until I went to someone took me to a police station. They're called the paramedics. I spoke to them, told them how much I'd been drinking and that I'd just stopped drinking. And they knew straight away what was wrong with me. They knew that I was suffering from severe alcohol withdrawals. When I was waiting for my first place in rehab, I was dependent both physically and mentally on alcohol at that point. And I think it was a 2 or 3 week wait until my place became available. And my parents actually went to our GP and said, like, what do we do? Like, we know that withdrawals are dangerous. What do we do? Because he can't. And the doctor actually turned around and said to my mum and dad, he can't stop drinking until he goes in. So my poor mum, and I hate thinking about this, but my poor mum had to basically feed me vodka for a couple of weeks. She had to, and I was drinking a lot, so I I was drinking over a litre of vodka a day. So my mum had to start rationing me vodka and weaning and just reducing how much she was giving me each day. So imagine that, your mum having to give you the thing that's killing you because it's too dangerous not to. I've always felt massive pressure to drink in social situations, and I feel like I probably would never have started drinking if it hadn't have been for it being so ingrained in uni culture. Do you think that the UK has a drinking problem? And if so, what should be done to combat it? It's socially acceptable to drink in this country and to get really drunk in this country, and we sort of laugh it off. As the figures suggested, once the pandemic kicked off, more people are drinking at a high risk level. I would say we do have a problem. We do have a drinking problem in this country. Things like minimum unit pricing could help. Also, marketing, like the amount of adverts there are, and especially on social media, the adverts that pop up about alcohol and glamorizing it. I think maybe we could restrict them a bit as well. And there needs to be more support for people who do become addicted. Rehab's a fantastic thing, but it's quite expensive. But I think it is the most effective form of treatment. One of the things that we can do, that we can all do, is to talk to each other about how much we're drinking. I mean, you can talk to your friends and family, and just speak to them about how much they're drinking. And if one of them suddenly comes out and says they've been drinking way more than what you expected they were going to say, then you've got a starting point. And you can have a proper discussion and maybe encourage them to get some help and to reach out to a professional to find out if they really are putting themselves at risk, and if they are developing a problem. This is something that as a society we can tackle together by talking differently about alcohol. Do you find social events difficult due to not drinking? Personally, I don't. I can quite easily go to the pub and watch the football or play pool. You got to remember, I'm 5.5 years sober now. Maybe at the beginning of my recovery, that wouldn't have been a good idea. But for me, I used to do all my drinking on my own. But for a lot of people who struggle with alcoholism, they do find it difficult to drink in social situations. And I think the key there is to take you out of situations where you you know there's a risk and where you don't feel comfortable. If people are encouraging you to join them, to come to an event where you know that it's going to put you under pressure, don't feel pressured to actually go. It's your life, it's your recovery. You need to focus on you. Just don't put yourself in any situations that are going to be dangerous for your recovery. What addictions do you believe need more awareness and work to combat? All of them, I'd say. Like I said earlier, alcohol, the more awareness that can be raised about the dangers of it, the dangers of addiction, the dangers to your health, the better. In terms of other addictions, gambling's a huge one at the moment, isn't it? Well, not at the moment. Gambling is just a huge problem in this country. And I mean, people can get addicted to all sorts of things. Social media is another one, shopping's another one. And then obviously you have drugs as well. There needs to be awareness about all of these things. Because if someone's got an addictive personality, they could get addicted to any of them. What would you say to someone who knows they have a drinking problem but doesn't know what to do? Well, firstly, the fact that you know you have a drinking problem is a huge step in getting yourself out of alcoholism and on the straight and narrow. Reach out for help. Go to an AA meeting, go to a SMART meeting, contact your local drug and alcohol services, and get yourself a caseworker and just start working on your recovery. Take as much help as you can possibly get your hands on. Speak to your family about it if you can. Thank you everyone for sending in your questions. You can find my blog at www.recoveryboy.blog if you'd like to read up a bit more about recovery and the mistakes I made and what I do now to stay sober. You can also find some of my posts about alcoholism on my Instagram, which is @recoveryboyblog.